For most of my life, I've wanted to be the smartest person in the room. I mean that plainly and a little uncomfortably. I've spent a great deal of energy, more than I care to admit, making sure I already had the answer before someone even asked the question. Maybe you know this feeling. The quick mental scan when a topic comes up. Checking your inventory. Do I know enough about this? Can I hold my own? What if I don't? And then the relief or quiet panic, depending on what you find. Or quickly Googling definitions for unfamiliar terms while pretending to be in a text conversation. The last thing I want is to look foolish, to open my mouth without a fully formed thought. As a result, I usually fade myself into the background. In meetings and social gatherings, silence is often safer than even asking a question that could inadvertently reveal how little I actually know. I remember my grandfather sitting at the head of the family dining table in his standard khakis and slightly oversized dress shirt and a dark and stormy in his hand. He was a man who moved through stories the way other people move through rooms, with total ease and authority. History, law, family lore, the stories of Puritans in England and America, the development of legal systems, local tales of Salem and Lynn and Marblehead, Massachusetts, he inhabited it all. Whatever story he embarked on might be prompted by some current event or idea. But he had a way of making distant history come alive. My grandmother and my father have that same quality. Travels to historical sites and deep dives into the places and people that shaped our world showed they loved knowledge fiercely and genuinely, not as a performance and not as a currency or for status. I watched my family and I learned. I learned something they never in their wildest dreams meant to teach me. Through the particular lens of a child trying to find their place at the table, I translated their pure love of learning into something else entirely. I watched my grandfather hold a room and I thought, this is how you matter. I watched my grandmother and thought, this is what's important. And I watched my father's eyes light up as he told a story, and I thought, this is how you belong. In 1980, writer Ray Bradbury gave a lecture to a group of screenwriting students. He told them to read one poem, one essay, and one short story every night for the rest of their lives. Not for any professional reason, not to get ahead. He said these ideas are not used to beat other people up with, not to one-up people with, but to have fun inside your head late at night when you're going to sleep, when the metaphors are born. He wanted them to have what he called a popcorn machine in their heads. All these kernels getting in and beginning to pop. He said, I hate serious people. I can't stand them. They're boring. I want you to have a delightful life. A popcorn machine. Not as a weapon, not as a credential, not a measuring stick. A popcorn machine, chaotic and warm and good smelling and spilling over. That's what my grandfather and my grandmother had, and that's what my father has. Their heads full of popping kernels, hardly containing their delight. I watched them and I thought they were demonstrating power. They were demonstrating joy. I mistook the whole thing. I developed and then carried a fear of wonder, a fear of not knowing with me into high school and the early years of my education. Knowing things was how I earned my seat. And it has served me in many ways. I'm a rigorous researcher and a very careful historian. I don't think those things are accidental. But underneath the genuine love of learning I have, the performance was always running. I was always checking, do I know enough? Eventually, I went off to Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, and what I encountered there quietly rearranged something in me, though I couldn't have named it at the time. I met professors and fellow students who, with the same love and dedication to knowledge, reframed it for me. I remember my philosophy professor as she encouraged no question go unexplored. If she didn't know the answer, she encouraged us to look it up right there in the middle of class. Students and professors asked questions they didn't quite know the answers to and weren't embarrassed to say, I don't know. They lingered in confusion. They were more excited by what they didn't yet understand than by what they did. They treated not knowing as an opening, an invitation. And when my father especially approached knowledge like this too, I had been unable to see it. I recognized something in my faculty and peers. I admired it, and it unsettled me in equal measure. If knowledge wasn't currency, if it wasn't how you earned your place, then what had I wasted all my time doing? My family didn't teach me to perform knowledge. They taught me to love it. I learned the performance part on my own. I grew up surrounded by people who loved knowledge fiercely. Growing up, I thought that to know things was to belong. The need to know, to be the authority, and to preempt uncertainty can make itself feel like a virtue, like diligence, and like preparation. And sometimes it is those things. But sometimes it's fear in a very convincing disguise. And I think it's why wonder, genuine wonder, not performed wonder, can feel so threatening, at least to me. Because wonder requires not knowing. Wonder requires sitting in the open space of a question without rushing to fill it. Rainer Maria Rilke, a late 19th and early 20th century Austrian poet and epistle writer, once wrote that we must live the questions. He didn't say to solve them, and he didn't say to research them thoroughly before the next time we meet. He said to live them, to inhabit them, to let them be the rooms you move through, not the problems you resolve. I told you at the beginning that I've spent a lot of energy wanting to be the smartest person in the room. And at times it has made me arrive at conversations carrying conclusions rather than questions. It's made me less present to the person in front of me than to the argument I was already preparing. And perhaps most tellingly, it has made wonder feel to me like a threat rather than a gift or invitation at times. Almost every week, I offer an opportunity for wonder in Sunday morning worship. I pull out my wonder box and tell the congregation, particularly the kids, we come here to ask questions of ourselves, each other, and the mysteries of life. Sometimes the questions we ask have answers, and other times they go unanswered. Today we get to wonder together about what's inside my box. I should have brought it so that we could all actually do some wondering, but I didn't think about that. One particular Sunday, I put a cat Beanie Baby in the box. After my usual preamble, kids and adults called out their wonderings. And after the service, a child came up very excitedly, exclaiming, they were right about what's inside the box. I see myself in their yearning for the correct answer, the wanting to be right. Because in the mainstream culture, that is currency. That's what we often think matters most. Being right can make us feel like we belong, like we've earned our place here. As a Unitarian Universalist, I try not to bind myself to the community with the currency of correct answers. In this space, we're bound together by relationship, by a commitment to journey together towards the unknown. Wonder is a central part of my engagement with Unitarian Universalism. At the core of my faith lies a dedication to supporting a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We come here to search and to wonder together through community. Searching. The search itself is the practice. The not yet knowing is not a way station to be passed through as quickly as possible. It is sacred ground. Ray Bradbury understood something deeply spiritual about this. Your passions schedule you, he said. Your passions drive you to become more fully yourself. Not your credentials or your mastery, your passions. The love of the thing itself, the poem, the idea, the question still open. That's what gets me out of bed. That's what makes a life delightful. What would it mean to bring that spirit into the room, into our sacred spaces, to come to our searching not as experts defending our expertise, but as people with popcorn machines in our heads, delighted, a little undone, and unable to stop wondering? I think that's what Sanctuary as a community does particularly well in our Unitarian Universalist world. The need to know, to learn, to wonder has not subsided in me. It was reframed, slowly, imperfectly, and still in process. My family showed me all along that I am something that I am only now learning to fully receive. Not a performance, not a standard to meet, just a delight to inhabit wonder. That we are not diminished by our questions. May we discover that wonder is not the opposite of intelligence, but its most honest expression. May our heads be full of popcorn, spilling over, ungovernable, and endlessly delightfully alive.